I mean, it's just unavoidable now, right?
Completely.
Whether you're a student trying to get an essay done or a software engineer.
Generating code.
Exactly, generating code, or a marketing manager drafting a strategy, you are using generative AI.
It definitely makes things faster, no question.
But there's this creeping question that I think we all have to face, which is, what's the cost of that speed?
Right.
Are we just upgrading our tools, or are we, I don't know, slowly letting some of our cognitive skills erode?
That's the core of what we're exploring today. And we really need to get past just speculating about it. We are diving deep into the neurocognitive, the behavioral impact of Gen AI on two really crucial areas. Your critical thinking and your cognitive load.
So this isn't just about productivity. It's about what is physically happening inside your head.
Exactly.
Okay, so our mission in this deep dive is to synthesize the findings from a couple of really powerful sources. First, we've got a massive survey.
Yeah, from Microsoft Research.
Yeah.
319 professional knowledge workers.
So we get a real-world view of how pros are actually using these tools.
And second, we have this very rigorous neurological study that used EEG and natural language processing, NLP, to track students writing essays.
And they compared three groups.
Three groups. Those using LLMs, those just using search engines, and a group using, well, just their brains.
We want to connect the dots. We want to see the link between those professional behaviors and the actual wiring changes happening in your brain. The goal is to show you exactly how your thought process shifts gears when you invite an AI into the task.
We're going straight to the evidence.
Okay, let's unpack this. So let's start in the professional world, the knowledge workers.
Right.
The Microsoft survey found something that really jumped out at me. Participants only self-reported using critical thinking activities for about 60% of the tasks they did with Gen AI.
Which means 40% of the time, that critical assessment was just skipped.
That feels huge.
It is a huge signal.
Yeah.
Because what it confirms is this dramatic shift in how critical thinking gets applied. Not that it's, eliminated entirely.
Okay, so what does that shift look like?
Well, the Gen AI handles the doing, the execution part. So the worker's job shifts into oversight, the checking, the refining. The sources call this a transition from material production to critical integration.
So if the AI is the producer, the human becomes the editor or the quality control manager.
Exactly.
But that completely changes what our brains are being asked to do. And if 40% of critical thinking is just gone, isn't oversight maybe just a fancy word for less thinking?
Yeah.
How do we know we're not just becoming complacent?
That's a fair challenge. I think the key is in defining the new thinking that's required.
Okay.
We could look at this through a classic cognitive framework. Think about the basic skills like recall and comprehension.
Right.
Before Gen AI, you spent a ton of energy on just gathering information. Now that effort shifts entirely to information verification.
So less about finding the facts, more about vetting the facts the AI gives you.
Precisely. The AI gives you the answer.
Yeah.
You have to confirm it's accurate and, more importantly, that it's right for the context.
And what about for, say, application? For actually solving a complex problem at work?
The effort there shifts from problem solving from scratch to AI response integration. You're not building the solution anymore. You're taking the AI's detailed proposal and making sure it aligns perfectly with your company's very specific, sometimes very niche needs.
That still requires a lot of domain knowledge.
A ton.
Okay, so moving up the chain, what about the big creative jobs? The analysis, synthesis, evaluation, the stuff that defines high-level work?
That whole group of skills shifts from task execution to something the researchers call task stewardship.
Task stewardship.
You become the steward of quality. You are the one responsible for making sure the output meets the highest standards of relevance, of uniqueness. And this is vital because if you fail here, you risk something they call mechanized convergence.
Mechanized convergence. That sounds bad.
It is. It means everyone using the same basic tool starts producing work that looks generically similar.
So if you're in marketing and you don't critically steer that draft copy,
you just end up with the same 5 predictable sentences the LLM offered to everyone else in your industry. Your final product has no originality. It's been homogenized by the tool.
Okay, let's shift from the professional roles to the behavioral risks, because this is where the confidence factor really comes into play. The survey uncovered what the researchers are calling the confidence paradox.
Yeah, the data on trust is very clear. They found a really strong relationship where Higher confidence in the Gen AI tool's ability to do the task
Right.
is associated with significantly less critical thinking.
So the more you trust the tool to get it right, the less you bother to check it yourself.
That's it.
That feels so familiar. It's that moment you hit send on an email the AI drafted and you have that flash of, oh, I hope I didn't just trust that thing too much.
Exactly. It's the classic risk of technology over-reliance. But there's a hopeful side, and it's also proven in the data.
Okay.
Higher self-confidence, that is, confidence in your own skills, is associated with more critical thinking.
Ah, so if you believe you could do the task yourself.
You engage more. You apply your own standards, especially when you're evaluating and applying the AI's response.
Mhm.
The best professionals, they don't lower their standards just because they were handed an easy button.
Okay, so if we trust the tool too much, we engage less. That brings up the next question. How does that lower engagement actually show up in our mental workload, our cognitive load?
Well, the data shows that LLMs streamline the whole process so efficiently that users experience a significantly lower overall cognitive load,
How much lower?
a massive 32% lower compared to users who were just relying on traditional software.
Yeah.
That is a huge reduction in mental friction.
To really get the trade-off here, we probably need to break down what cognitive load actually means.
Yeah, for sure. Think of it like this. Cognitive load theory splits mental effort into three buckets.
Okay.
First, you have intrinsic load. That's just how hard the material is, how difficult the math problem is to begin with.
Got it.
Then there's extraneous load. That's all the mental clutter, the frustrating stuff, bad instructions, a messy interface, filtering through pages of irrelevant search results.
The traffic jam in your head.
Perfect analogy.
Oh.
And finally, there's germane load. This is the good stuff. This is the deep mental effort you put into actually building long-term knowledge. It's the learning, the synthesizing.
So where do LLMs make the biggest difference?
They absolutely crush the extraneous load. That mental traffic jam is just cleared. You spend way less time sifting through junk, so you feel less frustrated, and you're willing to work on the task for longer. Efficiency goes way up.
That sounds like a pure win.
For immediate productivity, it is. But here's the crucial caveat, especially if you're trying to learn something. This massive drop in overall load doesn't always mean better learning.
Why not?
Because when the LLM does all the heavy lifting of synthesis, the user engages less deeply, and that compromises the germane cognitive load. If you skip that germane effort, you miss out on the deep encoding you need to build long-term mastery.
And that's exactly what that professional in the study was talking about. I remember the quote. They had to self-correct. They said, the AI does not understand the niche type of work I do. I have to adapt the output to fit my needs.
Yes, that urge to adapt, that's their critical thinking kicking in. It's forcing them to re-engage their germane load because they realize the generic output just isn't good enough for their specific job.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. Let's move to the neurological study. They used EEG data to actually measure brain activity while students were writing essays.
Yeah.
So we can literally see the difference in mental workload between using your brain, using Google, and using an LLM.
This is where the unseen cost really starts to show up. When students wrote unaided the brain-only group, their brains just lit up. Dramatically heightened connectivity.
Specifically, what did they see?
They saw high frontal theta activity and really broad network activation.
So what does that frontal theta activity tell us about what the unaided writer is thinking?
Think of your frontal cortex as the brain's air traffic controller. High theta activity is the signature of a high mental workload. It's tied directly to heavy demands on your working memory and your executive control.
So all the planning, the organizing, composing, juggling ideas inside your own head?
All of it. That brain was fully coordinating all the incoming and outgoing cognitive flights all at once. It's working hard.
And what happened when they brought in the LLM?
The LLM group showed significantly lower theta and alpha connectivity. It's a clear sign of a much lighter working memory burden because the LLM is basically scaffolding the entire writing process.
The air traffic controller doesn't have to work so hard.
Not at all. It's like writing with the handbrake on. The task feels easier because your brain isn't coordinating nearly as many internal resources.
And you mentioned alpha activity was also lower. What's that about?
Right. The alpha band is linked to deeper, more associative and creative processing. When that drops, it suggests the brain isn't going as deep into that rich, creative cross-referencing that writing from scratch demands.
Wow. Okay, so how did the search engine group, the traditional Google users, compare to the brain-only group?
The key difference there was in the alpha connectivity. The brain-only group had much stronger alpha activity, which points to a greater reliance on internal attention and memory. Their brains were actively digging through their own stored knowledge.
Which is the opposite of the Google effect, right? Where you remember where to find information, not the information itself.
It tracks perfectly with that. The search engine group had lower alpha connectivity, reflecting less reliance on internal memory because, well, the information is right there on the screen. So both the search engine and LLM users showed a less coordinated neural effort than the unassisted writer, but for different reasons.
So beyond the brainwaves, the content of the essays themselves told a story. The NLP analysis found what the study called the homogeneity risk.
Yes, the LLM-generated essays were, and this is a quote, statistically homogeneous.
In plain English.
They all looked the same, structurally, stylistically. They were far more similar to a standard AI-generated essay than anything written by the search engine or brain-only groups. They were just predictable.
And did that predictability show up in the actual language they use?
Oh, absolutely. The LLM essays tended to use things like third-person address forms and these highly convergent phrases, what are called engrams.
Like what?
For the essay topic on happiness, a common engram was choose career. It just kept popping up. It reveals the model's inherent bias toward common, safe, and often recycled language.
This feels like an echo chamber 2.0. The tool is just reinforcing its own internal narrative, and it narrows the creative space.
That's a great way to put it. At their core, LLMs are next token predictors. They are optimized to give you the most probable output, which means they are inherently more likely to provide reinforcing, consonant information, not diverse or contradictory evidence.
And the conversational style just makes it worse.
It compounds it. It can narrow your exposure to alternative viewpoints even further.
Let's talk about the sharpest consequence of all of this cognitive offloading: memory. Did using an LLM actually hurt their ability to recall their own work?
Absolutely. This is the clearest behavioral link back to that reduced neural activity we were talking about. LLM users were significantly worse at recalling quotes from their own essays.
How much worse?
In the first session, a staggering 83% of them reported difficulty quoting accurately from the essay they had just produced.
83%. Wow.
Yeah.
What does that signal?
It points directly to shallow encoding. When you're using the LLM, you're basically reading and transcribing information without deeply integrating it into your memory. There's no germane cognitive load, so those memory structures just aren't being built. It's a direct correlation to the reduced theta and alpha activity we saw on the EEG. Less effort, less memory.
And how did this play out when the essays were actually graded?
This led to a fascinating split. The human teachers could spot the LLM essays. They recognized the conventional structure and, most importantly, the homogeneity of the points being made. They often scored those essays low on uniqueness, even if an AI judge, which was trained purely on quality metrics, scored them highly. The humans noticed the lack of an authentic voice.
So what does this all mean for us, for the learner, for the professional? We've established this core trade-off.
Right.
Gen AI gives you this incredible efficiency. It reduces cognitive effort, but it comes with the risk of eroding these essential long-term skills.
Planning, memory encoding, synthesis. And it absolutely reduces originality.
And we saw that erosion happening in real time in the study. You mentioned the participants who tried to write on their own after getting used to the AI.
The LLM to brain group, yeah. They struggled profoundly. They kept reusing old vocabulary and structures like that persistent before speaking enneagram. It suggests their brains had adapted very quickly to the path of least resistance.
The brain just took the easiest road.
Yeah.
So how do we use these tools strategically without racking up all this cognitive debt?
I think we need design interventions that enhance our awareness. The sources suggest proactive systems, AI tools that actually interrupt you at key moments.
To do what?
To highlight the need for a critical check-in, especially when the task feels routine or unimportant.
That interruption would force you out of autopilot mode. It puts that germane cognitive load back into the equation.
Precisely. The goal should be a hybrid strategy. Use AI for routine composition, for that first draft offload, that annoying extraneous load. But you have to keep the core cognitive processes, original idea generation, organizing the structure, critical revision. You have to keep those strictly user-driven.
Full neural engagement is essential for the parts where you actually want to learn and build mastery.
I think so.
And just to close the loop on the true cost, we should quickly mention the environmental cost.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
An LLM query uses about 10 times more energy than a standard search query, roughly 0.3 watt-hours versus 0.03.
Yeah.
So that efficiency gain has a material cost too. Look, ultimately what's happening is your role is changing. You're moving from being a content generator to an output evaluator. And this shift is powerful, but you have to manage it.
Right.
If we just let our brains offload all the heavy lifting, we inhibit the deep learning and memory encoding that we need for real professional mastery
Yeah.
and, frankly, for cognitive longevity.
So if you use Gen AI, you have to be aware that you're engaging in a fundamentally different cognitive mode. You have to be mindful of the tasks where your self-confidence, your internal effort, that germane cognitive load is absolutely essential for building your long-term skills. For me, the most chilling detail from the study was that even when students wrote without the LLM later, they reused its vocabulary, its structure, they defaulted to the tool's voice.
Yeah.
Which raises a really important question for all of us. Now that you know the LLM bias runs so deep that it can change your own baseline language, how will you check your own writing, your own thinking, to make sure it's authentically yours? So what does this all mean?